Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Unfiltered. I'm Mike, and of course, Unfiltered is brought to you on the Fighters First Network. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Never miss an episode. And then go ahead over to the shop, fightersfirst.shop. Get all the latest and greatest apparel. Let our apparel be a part of your story. Now, speaking of that apparel, my guest this week, Shedrick Goodridge, a longtime MMA fighter. We interviewed him on Art of MMA all the way back in like 2013. So we've known who he is a long time. When we got Fighters First up and going, he was one of the athletes I reached out to get on board. The moniker Chocolate Thunder just sells on its own. Not to mention that he's a hell of a fighter. He's been training for a long time in the New Jersey area. Anybody that knows him. He's like connected with damn near every fighter that's ever come out of there. Everybody from Aljamain Sterling, Caitlin Chukagian, all the Henzo Gracie guys. But without further ado, Shedrick Goodridge, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me again. It's been a minute.
Well, there's two reasons we got you on, right? One, obviously to sell the collection. We got to sell. And two, you got a fight coming up, Flex Fight Series, July 16th. So we'll talk to you about that a little bit later. But I feel like a lot of people that now know Fighters First might not know the story of Art of MMA and the history behind it. So I wanted to take a moment, share your journey, share your story with people so they kind of know where you came from. But I don't think any interview is ever complete without hearing the story. Now, I've heard you say it on a number of interviews, so I know it's not brand new. But hearing the story of where the nickname Chocolate Thunder comes from, you got to tell the story about how your teammates and coach gave you that name.
All right, so
and you laugh every time you tell the story too. You can't even say it with a straight face.
How Chocolate Thunder came up, I think it was my first ever fight, like my first MMA fight or whatnot, and I made a post asking like what like songs I should walk out to, because that's a hard decision. You really don't know. So I made this post. Everybody's dropping songs or whatnot, and then my jiu-jitsu coach at the time, he goes, "Oh, Chocolate Rain," and I'm like, I'm not walking out to Chocolate Rain. Kind of like no. And then next thing you know, my other coach at the time, he goes, Chocolate Thunder. And I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. Like, no, I was against it. So, boom, fast forward, fight night. I have no clue what these fools did. I walk into the cage, and it was Garv. He's the announcer, and all I hear is Shedrick, Chocolate Thunder. And I'm like, hey, yo. They really did me dirty. And I mean, it didn't help.
You say they did you dirty, but here you are, like 11 years later, and now it's like, well, it's your moniker. It is you.
Yeah, that's how I felt at the time, but it also didn't help that I finished the dude in like 30 seconds. So now you got everybody, yeah, Chocolate Thunder, yeah. I'm like, I mean, freak it. I'll rock with it. Now,
hey, it's done you right. It's done you right.
Yes, sir. Throwing chocolate kisses out the crowd, all of
that. There you go. Make it all about marketing. You could always just said you were named after Daryl Dawkins or something.
Yeah, I've gotten that too. Like, oh yeah, what, you ball up too? I'm like, a little bit, but
a little bit.
Not where the name came from.
But let's go back a little bit. All right, so you're originally a Staten Island guy, but grew up in Rahway. Jumped into everything from wrestling and all kinds of sports in middle school and high school. Before you got into the military, do you think? Because here's the thing, like I know you're good on the ground, but you like to stand and bang.
Yep.
Do you think the wrestling is more helping you with like your defense nowadays, or do you still use it as a tool as aggression?
I mean, I go off the opponent. It's like whatever he gives me, but I have no problem using it. Like my wrestling would normally, if I'm going against a wrestler, I'm using my wrestling to keep the fight standing because I know you're uncomfortable and you're going to go back to what makes you comfortable. So now if you can't, like we're in quote unquote your world, if you can't take me down, now you're panicking and now I'm going to light you up. But if I feel like you're over aggressive with your strikes or whatnot, I'll take you down. Like, again, like, I don't forget where I come from, and my background is wrestling. I wrestled my whole life, so I'd be a fool to kind of like just in an MMA fight to throw that part away and be like, yeah, nah, I'm just gonna stand if I'm getting my head punched off. That don't make no sense.
What made you want to get into wrestling? Because that really wasn't like in the Jersey, New York area. Like wrestling, I think, especially at that time period, probably wasn't the most popular thing to go and do as a middle school kid. Like everybody else playing football, basketball, baseball.
You know, that's a wild thing. So for wrestling, the reason why I got into wrestling was from football, because my was actually one of my boys, former Bellator champ, Darren Caldwell. We played football together, and his dad was like the ringer, grabbing all the kids. Yo, come on, you gonna come wrestle or whatnot. So Pop Warner or whatnot, I'm getting ready to. He's like, hey, Sam, you ever wrestle? In my head, I'm thinking it's like the WWE wrestling. So I'm like, yeah, let's go. Took me to practice, and then that was that. I was there from point A all the way through.
It's always funny, like when you first hear wrestling, especially in middle school and high school. And I did very little of it, but like you hear, that's the first thing you think of, right? As a kid, you're like professional wrestling. Let's just go jump in there, unless you already knew somebody on the team or somebody, and they kind of pulled you in there. I actually used to have a middle school PE coach who, funny enough, because I went to TC Williams and everything, and Remember the Titans and all that stuff. And he was actually an assistant coach back on the Remember the Titan days. And Coach Hines, I love that dude. He was our middle school like PE coach, and that's how we actually settled fights. Now, I mean, he's passed away. I can say this safely without getting him in trouble. But instead of having the kids go out to the schoolyard and just fight, he would have us wrestle. No punches, wrestle. You wear yourself out, and that's how you did it. And that's how a lot of us got into wrestling, like in middle school, because we would just be like, that's how we settled our differences. All right, sorry about that, folks. A little bit of technical difficulties. It would not be an episode sometimes if we don't go through some of them. But we were talking about middle school wrestling. What kind of got you into it? I told a little bit of story, shared with that. But from there, you went into the military, right? What branch of the military did you go into?
I was in the Army.
Army. How many years did you serve in the Army?
6.
6. And I know the story goes that you got into what they call Army combat training, right? Which is kind of like glorified grappling, jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah, combatives training.
Combatives training. Is that what kind of led you to eventually going into MMA when you got home?
Yep. We would have all these different like competitions or whatnot, and every time especially during like basic and then going into AIT, they'd always be like, yo, Goodridge, yo, come do this, yo, come, yo, come, and then I'd be like, all right, and then I'd win because I had a strong wrestling background, and I was able to like pick up on like some of the moves that they would show us. Like they showed us like the guillotine, and then they showed us like the arm bar. And it was like I had very good top pressure, so it was like if I took you down, I was on top of that. I could do whatever I wanted. So after a while, it was just like, yeah, I might as well try it. And at that time, when I first started, all the top fighters were wrestlers, so it only made sense. And one of my best friends, Danny, we were watching. It was actually Hoist versus Matt Hughes. And then we were watching it. He looked at me, he's like, man, you can do this shit. And I was like, word? All right, I'm going to try it. And then boom.
So what led you into going into that? Is that what how did you get introduced to the gym the first time? Like, how did you go from like, all right, I'm going to do this to actually stepping foot in that gym for the first time?
We looked it up online. After that, we started looking up gyms in the area, and we started like we'd go here, try it out. We went to a couple places, and then we ended up finding Camp Salak, and at that time, where were they? I think it was Springfield. I'm not too sure on the first location, but it was somewhere pretty close to us to where we went in and tried it out, and it was great.
Now, how did you get like that? That seems kind of random because I mean I know it's now looking back at it, it was great for your career, but back in that time, like Tiger Schulman's was a thing, Henzo Gracie was a thing. Like, did you think about going to any of the bigger schools?
Actually, nah, I really didn't. It was like, because for me, it's like, just coming out of the military, you're like, all right, let me see what's up. And both spots were, I guess, a little distance from me. So it was more of like, hey, let's, like, because one thing for me, right, like, even through, like, pretty much all of sports with me, like, Broadway was always it wasn't like the biggest school, but we always had dogs. And we was always able to compete. Like, Ron would go in there with some regular ass kids, and we'd have to wrestle all these top schools, and we would dust them. So I never was about the going to the big school, because at the end of the day, like, if you had that dog, you were good regardless. I remember there were schools that they'd be like, "Oh, we're always gonna get killed," and we end up beating them by 30 and wrestling, So it was just, I guess that was always a part of me. Like, it doesn't matter where I go because I know I'm gonna be good.
Yeah, I mean,
I have the same people around me.
I think that's definitely something. You look at somebody like Derek Brunson, kind of the same thing in North Carolina, not necessarily training around a bunch of known camps, and he still made it pretty big.
Exactly.
But I think there's also something to be said about iron sharpens iron, and you're training against some of the best. It makes you a better fighter. But that was never a problem with you. We talked about it in the old interview. You training with people like Aljamain Sterling and stuff like when they first were coming up. So you did have a lot of killers around you, especially in that New York, New Jersey, Long Island area. Especially this is 2010. Just so many up and coming fighters coming out of that area in all weight classes too. It wasn't just like the little guys or the big guys, like literally every weight class. How long did you train before you got your first amateur fight?
Yeah, probably like 3 or 4 months.
Okay, because you moved pretty quickly. Like I remember talking to. So let me actually go back a second. Eric Johnson, our lead interviewer for a long time, it was the one who actually interviewed Shedrick way back in the day. And I remember reading the interview and I was reading about it and I was looking you up and I was looking up your stats, and it's like you went from amateur, which you won a couple belts in I believe 4 fights, and then all of a sudden you're turning pro. So everything moved pretty quickly for you. Was that kind of the plan, or was that just kind of the way it worked out?
All right, so how it was going, it was like my old coach James Mills, he had a plan. First he was like, all right, in order for me to get you a fight, you have to win a grappling tournament. So I was like, I mean, all right. Again, for me, I was used to a bunch of matches going on because of my wrestling background. So I said, all right, whatever. So I looked up a grappler's quest and I said, well, there's this one. I'm going to go here. End up going there, submitting my way through. Now you got to find me a fight. I did what you told me.
Yeah.
So then I did. So I won the grappler's quest. I think it was nationals or something. I won that, and then after that, now it's finding me a fight. So I wanted to jump right in because again, I felt like I had the potential to be great. So
you're also not even though you were young, you weren't inexperienced. You had a number of years in the military, with hand-to-hand and combat training and everything else. So it wasn't like you just jumped into MMA with no training. You had been training. It was just different training.
Yeah, it was definitely different training, and I was like, it's a different kind of feel when you're in there. So So with what he said now, because it was like, all right, so we got me my first fight. I went out there. I was like, because in amateur, you really don't know who you're fighting until you see them.
Yeah, because it could change like 10 times.
Yeah, like that's happened multiple times. I don't think I've had the original opponent that I was supposed to have ever. Like, it's always shit. So my first guy, we're like, all right, let's do this or whatnot. And I'm not gonna lie, he wasn't in the best shape, a little chubby, and it was just like, what the dude came in like 10 pounds overweight.
Did you start off at 185?
Yeah. So that first fight, I beat him. Like, yeah, it was like 30 seconds or something. Like, I took him down. I could have probably beat him standing, but punches start getting thrown. Go back to what you know.
Yeah.
I took him down, mounted him, switched to an armbar, fight over. So now it's just like, all right, you're definitely on that high.
And that's the Maurice Davis fight, the very first one.
Yep, the Maurice Davis fight. Then I started talking about like, so like, how many fights until I go pro? He's like, yeah, no, I want you to slow down. Like, this is not the first fight. Like, this is not the fight that you want to base your going pro off. It was like I was still wrong. So you said, all right, I want you to go 5-0. And once you go 5-0, you have to have a belt before you can go pro. So I was like, all right.
That's fair.
So, yeah, I mean, it made sense. I was with it. My first fight, I didn't take any damage, so I was ready to go right back in there. Next thing you know, we had another guy, I think his name was Lawrence Powell or something.
Yeah.
He had like a karate background. I went out there and I beat him in like a minute and 10 seconds. And then I was just rolling. Next fight was actually my first fight, Jersey, Alfred Allo. That fight actually went to the second round.
What's funny about that guy too is he kind of disappeared. He actually made it. He made it to CFFC, and I remember he was one of the people that Eric interviewed before one of their cards. Like at one point, there was we were working really closely with Cage Fury, and we were doing a lot of interviews before their fights and going up and down the card. And we had interviewed him. He had like a promising career, and then he lost a fight, and then you never saw him again.
Yeah,
he's not on social media. He's not anywhere. Like, I always wonder what happened to that guy.
Yeah, me too. Because he was a cool dude too. Because like even after our fight, we still like kept contact or whatnot. We were on each other's social media and whatnot. We're talking here and there. We're actually, he actually wanted like a rematch or whatnot in our pro career or whatnot. But I don't know what ended up happening with that.
He went 0-5. He lost to Ninja Turtle Steven Regman. He lost to Steven Regman, and then never heard from him again. He just disappeared.
Yeah, no, that's wild. I mean, but that does happen. Like, guys come in, but he was good. He was good though. That's the thing. He took all tough fights too.
Yeah, I mean that could be the story of your career as well too, because you fought a number of tough guys, and your record, you have a lot of experience. Your record's not necessarily your skill level, because everybody in the MMA game knows your name and knows like what you bring to the table.
Definitely. With that on the MMA side, like again, everyone, who I am. Like, that's one thing I can say. No one can be like, oh yeah, like, no, I don't know that guy. Yeah, you do. And it's just more of the fact of, like, I guess with management and coming out, like, all of my fights have been tough. All of my fights have been hard, guys. Like, if you sit there and you look at anyone that I've fought, and you look at where they're at now, what they've done, UFC vet, UFC contender vet, one FC champ, one FC double champ, Bellator title challengers, like,
I mean, we can even fast forward to your first pro fight when you finally got that call at CFFC 9, Atlantic City. Go check the shirt out on fightersfirst.shop. Shameless plug. in our retro collection. But you fought Ariel's. I'm gonna butcher his name, but Sepulveda. Sepulveda. I was close. He had a number of fights already pro before you fought him. He was already like I think in his 6th or 7th fight, and then he also went on later to fight.
He had like 13, 14 fights.
Yeah, I can never trust Tapology. But the point was he had a number of fights before that. He was already a pro. You're talking about a guy that later on went to Glory Kickboxing and a number of other things that he's fought in his career. And that was your first pro fight, like right off the bat, and you took him to a decision, which says a lot for somebody brand new to the sport.
Yeah, it was a split. I felt like I won that fight, but it is what it is. But yeah,
I actually watched that fight back the other day, and I honestly, I'm not going to say I won't be a homer and say that I think you won, but it was definitely a razor close fight.
Yeah, because I felt like I had the first, the second, like I looked at the second and it was just like, yeah, he had that big slam, but then I took him down off the slam.
Yeah,
and I stayed on top. Then you can give him the third for the last 30 seconds, but I don't know. That was and also with his experience, he knew what to do there. He knew how to and he was fucking huge.
That was your come to Jesus moment when you first realized what MMA judging was.
Yeah. It was like
never leave it to the judges.
Exactly. Then you got to go out there and finish.
But I mean, especially on the regional scene, right? Like they're looking for big moments. They're not necessarily looking for who did control 80% of the round. They're looking like, oh, I remember the slam in the second round. I remember the 30 seconds. That's what they remember. And these aren't MMA judging, I'm not going to say it's gotten any better over the last 10 years. We know it hasn't.
It's trash.
I mean, I think Art of MMA, we complain about MMA judging at least once every couple of weeks. And I can't wait to me and Brandon get back at it and talk about some of these other fights that happened recently. But yeah, that right there, your very first fight, you learn about MMA judging real quick.
Yep.
But then you did go on to win a couple fights. You bounced back, but you fought everybody pretty early. You fought in CFFC, which now is crazy how that's become like a breeding ground for the UFC now. 10 years ago, we saw the George Sullivans and Paul Felders and those guys come out of there. But now it's like that's one of the promotions in the United States that Dana's always looking at for the next guy.
Yep.
The famous fight we always talk about early on is the Brett O'Terry fight. That one kind of got you the deal with Bellator. You fought a number of other fighters. You fought Sam Oropeza. You fought Aung La and Sang, who went on to be like a multi-division champ for one. You fought people like Sean Lally, who had the weird dislocated arm thing. You guys were supposed to run it back, weren't you? Like the fight got canceled or something?
Yeah, we were. So how it was supposed to happen, how it was explained to me, what I didn't understand. It was a weird situation because Sean had just fought in Bellator before that, and he had lost, but he was their middleweight champ. So our fight was at middleweight, but it wasn't for the belt. I didn't understand it or whatnot, but I needed to fight at that time, so I said, fuck it, I took the fight. And what ended up happening with the shoulder, when I had the darts, I trapped his arm. So while I was trapping his arm, I was trying to turn, I was turning my hips down. So as I turned my hips down, he wanted to pull. That's when the dislocation happened. So, of course, Sean's my boy, and I say this all the time. If it was anybody else, I wasn't telling the ref anything. I was going to continue to go forward.
Yeah.
But again, that's my guy. So I was about to.
I mean, in fairness, you did throw a couple kicks after that.
Yeah, I threw a couple to see if he could get his arm up, but then he couldn't, and I was just like, "Yo, stop." But
I mean, even the announcers, if you rewatch that fight, and we'll put it up on Fighters First soon. But if you rewatch that fight, even the announcers thought maybe his arm got hurt from one of your kicks.
Yeah, but it was definitely before the kick. I was throwing hard and heavy, but that's how Sean fights. Like he throws steam. So I wasn't about to sit back and not like match his intensity.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so then they said, all right, if I win that fight, we would fight again for the belt. But then he was injured, so we had to wait. Then while waiting, we had another fight set where we're gonna do a small glove Muay Thai fight. That was right before the oh so wonderful COVID period.
Yeah, because we'll get to that in a second about your inactivity and finally getting back to the cage. But yeah,
that's what they canceled the week of the fight.
Yeah,
because everything shut down.
That whole crazy period. I mean, I felt so bad for so many fighters. You couldn't like fight. You couldn't train. You were locked out of your gyms, especially in the New York, New Jersey area. Like, yeah. I know a lot of people started, and I've seen actually videos of you still doing it today, like started training outside.
Yep.
Is that kind of where you started? Like, were you always kind of training outside quite a bit, or did you start doing more during the COVID area?
I started doing more during the COVID area. Like, yeah, we'll do like my little runs and here and there, do a little bit of work outside, but COVID area was definitely where it was just like, all right, let's get this work outside.
Yeah, I know a lot of gyms, they would go to a giant park and then they would just have their classes in the park because they couldn't be close enough inside allowed to like train.
Yeah, my the Hensel Gracie Academy in Jersey City where I train at, we took our mats outside and put them on the sidewalk and train.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that from the late Sergio Da Silva when we first started Art of MMA back up. We started during the COVID era, kind of, you know, like we've been going now, I think 78 episodes by the time this show airs. And we went through like the whole end of I mean, we're still in the COVID era. Let's be real. It's not over yet. But like we started during that whole thing. And that was almost a running thing. Like every week we were like, well, could you get in to train for this? Could you do this? You know, Brandon Catino, another fighter who's on our show all the time, now my co-host, like same thing. Like we would always be talking about like how to train, like how you guys are going to get in there, how you going to prepare for a fight. You know, you had a lot of fighters going over to Fight Island and Abu Dhabi for the UFC, like fighting over there. It was just such a mess. But before we get on to like that era and what's coming on, let's go back just a little bit. You had a lot of tough fights. That was kind of where I'm going with this. Who do you think was really like really tested you the most inside that cage, win or loss?
Tested me the most. Try to. Damn, that's. That's a hard question.
I mean, even your last fight against now UFC fighter Andre Petroski, you know, going into the fight, you were. I'm not gonna lie, you were a little bit cocky about it, but going into the fight.
Yeah. I mean, definitely because I felt like I had the stronger stand up.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people don't know, I broke my right hand 4 seconds into the fight.
So there goes your stand up.
Huh?
I said, well, there goes your stand up.
Yeah, exactly. That was like, and let's be real, like the dude is talented as fuck, and it was already going to be a hard fight with him with 2 working hands. Now with one, it's just like, whoa, let's ride it out, see if you can catch him. Like, because he came out hard, and what I did was I threw my straight left, and when he leaned, I threw my check hook, and I threw it, landed right on top of his head, and I was just like, oh, well, there goes that. And I couldn't throw my jab. I couldn't break the grip. So, yeah, that was definitely my hand. My hand looked like fucking mushed meat. Like,
I mean, it's no, like you said, no slouch. The guy just beat Maximov. He ran through, like, yeah, he has 1 loss on his professional career. The dude's a monster. He's going to be a problem for a while. I think he even won like a grappling match with Phil Hall.
The Fury grappling, he won that against Phil.
So he does a little everything. The dude's a monster. Like I kept picking against him, like almost every time he fought, and then like now I'm like I'm not picking against this guy no more.
Yeah, nah, Andre is definitely legit. He's doing what he's supposed to do, and he's doing it in amazing fashion.
Yeah, no, he's a pretty good fighter. But Andre Petroski, and I'll go back even further. I think one of your toughest fights, if you allow me to say it, might even have been, and this is going way back to and you had a lot of split decisions too. You got Chris Wing. You had.
I beat the dog shit out of Chris Wing. I don't want to get it.
Yeah, but the judges didn't give it to you, Mr. MMA judging.
Yeah, no, that was the worst judge fight ever. He looked like he had buttered a bag of bricks, and I still had a fresh cut. I'm sorry.
But I was also going to. Go ahead.
I'll stop fighting after that fight.
I could believe it. I mean, shit. Yeah, that was a.
That shit was bad. That was a bad one. It really, and the wild part about it is, right after the right after the fight, he goes, and I quote, he's like, I'd rather be you than anyone else, and I lost it, bro. I dominated each round. I don't see a round that you can give him in that fight.
Yeah, but I was really just talking about the decisions. I wasn't trying to send you down the rabbit hole. My bad.
Fuck that. Because you know what? With that fight, I felt the type of way because again at that time we were both training in the same spot at AMA.
Yeah.
Because my coach at the time would go there and bring us, so it was always straightforward. And then his doofus ass father started talking bad shit and called me out. I'm like, why are you calling me out? I train with your son, and then he just I feel like he was trying to live through Chris's career or whatnot.
Yeah.
And then started talking reckless, and then it was just like, all right, well, now he got to get it for you. But again, that's back in the day. But that definitely beat the shit out of him.
That's another guy who fought one more time, and then you never heard from him again.
Exactly, because we're supposed to fight again, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, nah. Why would I take a step back? Because your face took a step back. But anyway.
But I was talking about him. I was talking about Braunstrup, who you had another decision loss. I was talking about the ones that kind of stretched you out because most of your wins and losses are by stoppage. One way or another, you're bringing the excitement. You're going for it 110% every time you step in that cage. And I think that's what fans really kind of gravitate towards you for, because they know when you step in that cage on or in that ring on July 16th, they know what they're getting. They know you're, from the moment that bell rings, you're bringing the fight. But that's kind of going back to me, kind of wondering what was your toughest fight for you, because you got names like Brett O'Terry and all those other guys you kind of going through. What was your top fight?
You know what? I feel like the Chattel fight, the Todd Chattel fight.
Yeah.
Because that was one guy that I hit with everything.
CES 21.
Yeah. When I tell you, I was and I felt good that fight too. I felt good. I was fighting him in his hometown. Everybody was booing me. That was the first time I ever got booed at. I was like, yo, what did I do? And then a couple of the Patriots linemen were there. I remember Wolford told me I was going to get knocked out. So I had to throw a little Giants line in there and keep it moving. Yeah, with him, I think I was putting combinations together, landing clean, but he just kept moving forward. I think at one point in time of the fight, he started blocking my punches with his head, put his head down. As I'm throwing punches, and then smile and laugh, and I'm just like, yo, how am I gonna get this dude out of here? Because again, one thing we were afraid of is it going to the judges. And it was just yo, if it goes to the judges, you might get another bad decision. So I had to literally be on point to where there's no possible way you could say that I lost that fight. I'm so scared going to the judges.
Yeah, you'd already been through it a couple times at that point, so I could only imagine. And I love Vince Wilfork because I'm a big Miami Hurricane fan, but I'm also a diehard Giants fan too. So, Vince, you can suck it.
He'll be all
right. Yeah, he's got a few rings. He's got a few $1 million in the bank. I think he's all right.
Yeah.
He's actually one of those guys always goes back to the U too and like works with a lot of the younger kids and stuff too. So he's always a good dude.
Yeah, dude is definitely legit. I was just mad. I was like, yo, bro, I'm about to go fight. I'm about to get knocked out.
All right, so that kind of brings us to now. You've been off for a couple years because of COVID and everything going on, canceled fights, training. You're now, at the point in your career where did you think about maybe not having any more fights, or were you always looking for another fight?
I mean, like, all right, so COVID definitely didn't help. But, like, because we all know how the COVID era kind of did it. Like, unless, like, you were a company's guy, you weren't fighting. Because now they don't have fans. And it's like, oh, yeah, we're going to have the guys that, like, our guys fight. So, after a while, it's like, oh, yeah, we don't have anyone. Or they were offering you shit money for fights that, like, again, I fought for Matt Long. I fought all the top guys. I'm not, like, the pay has to be good. So, for a while, like, and then you're going through COVID. That whole time for me, my family, there was, like, a bunch of shit going on. Like, yeah, the thoughts of not fighting was definitely, like, rumbling because it just wasn't happening. So, like, like, after getting back out there, getting back in there, the gym, when I started going more to Jersey City, my guy Sparky, he was like, yo, just come in, come work, come get some, like, you get that feel back. And then once you get that feel back, it's like, yeah, now I still got hella time. Like, I got way, like, let's get busy. Like, so I just kept training. And then after a while, like, yeah, I got big too. So after a while, it was getting back in shape, get back in shape. Now it's like, all right, let's push the envelope. Let's see, like, where we can go with it. And now, July 16th, next fight series. So I'm in Farmingville, New York.
What weight's the fight gonna be at? Because I know you fought between welterweight and middleweight.
Super middle for kickboxing. I guess super middleweight, 195.
Is it gonna be like a catch weight for you, or is it gonna be like where you're at right now? So I know you said you got a little bigger.
Oh no, well that's the weight class, I guess.
But I'm saying is that where you were aiming to go? Like, were you trying to get back down to 185 or?
Well, no. The plan is definitely get all the way back down to 185. But my original, like, I wanted to fight at 205, then go to 85 or whatnot. But they offered 95, and I said, "Fuck it, I'll make 95."
And they haven't. We kind of know the opponent, but we're not going to announce it on here because, like, Flex might change it, and they haven't announced it publicly yet. But it is exciting to see you back in the ring, and K1 rules, back in the ring in any form, whether it's MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, whatever the case is. The fans always love watching you fight. You always bring the heat, and we always talked about how everybody knows your name. It's kind of funny. The moment we signed you to Fighters First, then I got other fighters all of a sudden be like, "Hey, well, we like what you did for him. Can you do it for us?" And some worked out, some didn't. I'm not gonna say no names, but they know who they are. So one of your buddies, anyway. But they, it's just crazy because, like, the connections you have, you have UFC fighters, you have CFFC fighters. I even reached out. I know it's a work in progress, but you talked about Manuel Wallo, who's a guy we interviewed a couple times with Art of MMA. That's a good friend of yours. You have so many people that you've trained with and worked with that your level of experience for a 32-year-old fighter is way beyond a lot of other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's like I was always in the right spot at the right time, you know, like. And then I feel like I'm genuine with the sport, so and like it all fell through to where it was just like, hey, like that's a cool dude. Hey, you work? Let's get work together, and then you end up around other people, and then like because again, the fight world is small. Like yeah, there's a bunch of fighters out there, but it's very very small. You're always gonna run into somebody. So
I mean,
it's
even
about what you do with the relations.
yeah, I mean, even connections through us. Like we obviously interviewed you back in the day before your Bellator fight. But then you also did some stuff with Warfare Inc., James Cosenza, which was good friends with my guy Eric Johnson, another connection there.
That's my boy.
Yeah, and they've done great for the fighters. You, Jonathan Webb, a number of other fighters throughout the years. They've always done right by you guys. So we got a lot of love for Warfare Inc. And then, of course, you know, we got the collection now, Fighters First, featuring a couple of different style shirts. We got the retro style shirt, which I love. We got your new Dragon Ball Z style shirt that you're going to be wearing for the fight.
You're gonna be fired.
And then we got the hands catching lightning shirt, which is awesome. That was one of the ones that took me a while to design. That one took a little longer than I planned on when I had the idea in my head of how I wanted that to come out. And then I started doing it, and then like a couple sleepless nights later, and I'm like, damn it. but it came out fire. In fact, your boy Des Green even bought one of those. Shout out to Desmond Green, working his way back to trying to get back to where he was after all those situations.
Yeah.
I'll leave that for another show, another episode, because Desmond Green is a whole nother episode. But you know, that just shows like all the connections. But one thing I wanted to ask you about, and a lot of people kind of know you, they know you have the Liberian and Barbados roots, even though you're born here. You want to talk about that a little bit? Tell people about a little bit like how your roots like kind of came from.
I mean, yeah, like first, well, my mother came over from West Africa. My father did too. The Barbados side comes from my father's lineage or whatnot. I think it was like my great grandfather or my grandfather that came over and whatnot. But it all comes from hard work. Like they fucking fought to get over to America. They got here and then they made a life. Like starting over in Staten Island, which was a very very big Liberian community. Even so, being over in Staten Island, New York, Park Hill, so it was always there. So like it just like I feel like the part like I love about being West African, being Liberian, is just like we always like. I guess you can take that into like why I'm so fine. We always push through. We always try to find another way. We always you come out here, then you get sent back home, and then find another way back out here until you get your citizenship and you work and you make yourself
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I wanted to ask you about that. I'll give you a chance to share that story a little bit. Because, even on the new shirt that we have, we kind of pay tribute to those roots. Like each of the lightning bolts has the flag from those countries, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely.
It's funny you talk about Staten Island. I can't let you go without actually asking you, because like I'm a big Wu-Tang fan. I'm old. I grew up during that era. Have you caught any of like the new show they did on Hulu the last couple years? Kind of like,
yeah, I love it.
Do you like? Because I know you're born there, but you grew up in Rahway. Do you like recognize some of the stuff they use in the show?
I would recognize all of it. Because all right, so what was happening, right? Well, like my earlier years. I was still living. I was living in Jersey, but then going to school in Staten Island because we had to wait for my brother to finish school, and then my sister, they didn't want to take them. My older brother, my older sister, my mom didn't want to take them out before they finished. So it was like we're here, we're taking the trip in the morning, and my grandmother still lives there, so I spent most of my time still over there. But
Yeah, my ears kind of lit up when you said Park Hill, and I was like, Park Hill, Singleton Projects. I was like, I started replaying everything in my head for a second because I grew up a huge Wu-Tang fan, and it's kind of funny because the show is kind of, they take everything and kind of Hollywood it up. They take the stories and kind of morph them into what might not have actually been the real thing.
They try to make it more appealing.
Yeah, like their first concert they did, and where ODB took the mic and started like talking about the speech and stuff. That's actually on YouTube, and the real speech sounds nothing like the one they did on the show. The show sounds all positive. He was cursing out the crowd. He was like he was going crazy. He was doing like ODB does. But yeah. So July 16th, Flex Fight Series. What are we going to expect from you?
Fireworks. Because, I mean, for the guy that they have, like the guy that was on the contract or whatnot, he's legit. Like, again, he's young in the game, but he definitely is legit. He does have the talent. I don't feel like he's fought I don't feel like he's fought anyone at his talent level, so he makes it look a lot like better or whatnot. But I feel like my level of talent, the level of work I'm going to bring that night is definitely going to elevate him to see where he really is at. And I mean, it's going to be a good fight. At the end of the day, if I don't show up fully prepared, it could be a bad night for me, but I don't see that happening because the work I'm putting in, like the amount of training I'm doing, where I'm going, like, again, I'm at Enzo Gracie in Jersey City first, and then from there I go straight over to UFC Gym Hoboken, over there with Rich Van Houten and Roberto Bashari, and then from there, right after that, I end up going out towards Teaneck to the Yes Boxing Club with Joe and G. And like again, I feel good. I feel sharp. Everything's coming together, and I mean, like, I guess I could say this. And that fight's for a title too. So, I mean, I'm jumping right back in. Like again, if you know me, I take the tough fights. This kid's a tough fighter. It's going to be good.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Cedric, tell people where they can find you on social media and everything. Of course, we'll put the links in the show notes, but tell people where they can find you and follow for your fight and stuff.
All my social media is CT Goodridge _185. Facebook, you know my name. Just type it in. Also, give a good little shout out to my guys, pretty much all my teammates from each spot that I talk to. You guys get me ready, and I appreciate all the work. Like a bunch of my teammates are also fighting the night before too, so that's gonna be that weekend is gonna be very, very. It's gonna be a good one. But
also, I've heard of a lot of fights happening on the 15th too. Yeah.
With my sponsors, like we mentioned earlier, Warfare Inc., New Jersey Nutrition, NJ Savage Life, BCBD, Turbo Habits. Like, I'm just, I feel good. I'm ready to put on. I'm ready to bring home some new hardware. It's been a while. And
are they streaming that? Are they going to be streaming that fight live on Flex Fight Series?
Yes, they will. They will be streaming that fight too.
Awesome. I will make sure I leave in the show the description below. Make sure you guys check it out down below. All the links to get in touch with Cedric. Make sure you check out his fight coming up July 16th. It's been a long time coming. We're looking forward to it. I want to thank you for your time, buddy. Look forward to you tearing the house down on July 16th.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, make sure you check out his collection on FightersFirst.shop. The link in the show notes, of course. For Shedrick Goodridge, I'm Mike Ginn. We're out.
Sure.